Watching Winnie Mandela's funeral, what do you feel about Winnie Mandela as a black woman resistant leader?
Well, as I was saying to you before, when I was made conscious about Winnie Mandela was the time of the storm, if you like, where she was being properly demonized as, involved in sort of killing and all this sort of stuff. And I didn't know the truth because we had this narrative that was supposed to be the dominant narrative, and there was no one there to tell you a counter narrative. But now we know that she actually had her integrity. She was committed to the cause for liberation, for the liberation movement in South Africa. She's a wonderful inspiration. I was saying last night, I was wondering about who is going to be next in line to take up that kind of struggle that she was so committed to. But I can't remember who it was at the funeral. One of the ladies that was organising it, she came on and she did the Mandela greeting, and then she was saying, "I am, you are, we are." In other words, we are all Winnie. Yeah. And I think we need to take something from that, and to see, obviously not everybody comes out and they can have such a powerful legacy. Yeah. However, if we can, even in our small ways in our life, just take a little portion of her energy and what she stood for, I think we can begin to maybe make some differences and some changes in the lives of others, because clearly she was all about love and all about putting others and the people who are experiencing the worst in society above all else. She was trying to ensure that the rights of those people were catered for, and she stood in the way, as they said in one of the clips as well. She stood in the way of people that putting guns in her way, and she didn't feel no way about that. Well, we're not faced with anyone that directly putting guns. You know,
I think about that a lot. Like, I think about the fact of, what am I going to do, or who, when you say, like, who's going to be the next Winnie, I think about what is my contribution going to be to the cause and to the movement, and it makes me very nervous, because I'm like, I know it won't be in the heights of Winnie, but then I know I can still definitely do something, and I think we can all do something. And when I even think about you and your work, and I think about your books and the way in which you inform and educate people, for me, I think that is us taking a little bit of Winnie's energy and showing our resistance. I think writing books is a part of resistance.
Absolutely.
And I think people making films and documentaries is a part of resistance. And obviously we have 3 of your books here. And one of the themes in these books for me is about spirits. And you speak a lot about spirits. Okay. And could you just break down, when we say spirits or spirituality, what do you mean? Or even when we speak about spiritual resistance, what exactly does that mean? It's powerful, I know. But what does that mean?
It means so much. It means starting with the root of the self, trying to understand what the self is, that the self is made up of all these different parts. You have your material reality, and you have your physical, obviously you have your physical reality, your material reality, and you also have your spiritual, or something that you can't see. Then you can't see it, but it's within you. It's something you feel, or sometimes something someone else feels. It is a power, and it's a power that is not separate from the material reality that you live. It's a power that if you nurture it, if you nurture that inner power, if you like, it can enable you to do whatever it is you think you want to do in a physical reality. So, for example, when I see Winnie Mandela, I imagine her spirit is so powerful, and her trust in her spirit is so powerful, which is why she's able to go up against a physical white oppressor that's carrying a gun. because before her and in her and through her is the spirit force that can, you know, if we can believe in those kinds of the high science where that gun is not even there.
Yeah.
She can't see that gun. She can't see the fact that this physical body that's next to her, that's opposing her, that's oppressing her, is white, which means whatever it means, oppressor. It means, you know, she has to defend herself. She is just exuding the power of her spirit. So when I see her, that is what I see. I see the spirit that comes before the physical that she is. And so when I think of spirituality and I think of us honing our spirituality, for me is the most critical thing that we can do to, because Winnie probably doesn't sit there or wouldn't have been sitting there necessarily thinking, yeah, I'm a spiritual being and, you know, whatever, and zenning out and all that. But some people don't need to do that because their spirit is so overpowering, so overwhelming, that's what's kept her going, kept her alive. And she would have obviously had her faith, believed in her ancestors and so on, and she would have been doing some of those connecting. And we really need to understand our ability to do that as well, and therefore know that it is also part of resisting.
You mentioned Haiti, and that's something that I wanted to speak to you about, and speak especially because in your books there's words such as Obia, there's words such as Komfa, and we hear all these words and a lot of them have negative connotations. In particular, I think the big one that we all know about is the word voodoo or voodoo. And you know, with Haiti, they used it in a positive way for the Haitian Revolution, but when I was growing up, all I heard was negativity about voodoo and this voodoo and all this kind of stuff. So why is it that it was put out so negatively and it was something that should have been shunned as opposed to something that we should as Africans kind of like gravitate towards?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. With the case of Haiti, it was because it was, and not just Haiti, I guess, because it deliberately, or the Haitians used it deliberately and conscientiously to fight their oppressor and to liberate themselves. That was an actual thing. The history books can't even lie about it. Yeah, they'd love to maybe try and skirt around and pretend, oh, this voodoo ceremony thing in Wakaiman didn't really happen. You know, that's just you know, but they can't help it because they know that it was directly related. And even if the history book writers, who are Europeans for the most part, even if it wasn't for them, it's popularized by the people and it's carried through oral history anyway. So now, if that's the case, that the Haitians use this practice that is to do with their ancestral tradition, even though they were dragged in chains to this part of the world, they still were able somehow to connect to that practice. If that was widespread, that they can use it positively, then we'll have this will just spread to the whole of Africa and Africans in the diaspora and what have you, and they would start thinking, well, actually, we can use that, you know. So what then happened, obviously, they created a lot of churches. In the case of Haiti, in fact, again, I can even stress this too, throughout the Caribbean, there'll always be a church in the corner to give you this alternative. And if they're going to give you an alternative, then they need the thing that you know to be the thing that is the negative. So they pushed the propaganda or the agenda that anything coming out of Africa or anything that's to do with African spirituality is to be shunned, it's negative, and it's anti-Christian. So Christianity in the main is the religion, you know. So Africans have come to see that as the case. So like you get Africans who'd be like, you know, if you're not Christian, they don't even understand where you're coming from. But they don't have a connection with the fact that, well, how did we become this version anyway of Christianity that we have? So Haiti, and in fact all of the practices that we could reconnect back to Africa were demonized deliberately because it's part of a liberation movement. You know, and also some liberation theologies utilize obviously resistance through spirituality as well. So what I found, particularly in the Pan-Africanist circle, is a lack of utilizing this African spirituality to our betterment.
But there are so many women resistant leaders that I think people need to know more about. So a woman who, would I say you named yourself after? Would I say you named yourself after? Would I say that? From Ghana. Are you okay?
Yeah.
You need a minute, because I know it's a powerful thing. I know it's a deep thing. I just want to speak about her briefly and what she did in Ghana.
Yeah, Yaa Asantewa. I suppose it's because you were saying I named myself after, so I was trying to get my head around.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was trying to get my head around that. Yeah, I guess I did take on that name. Yaa Asantewa was brilliant in the sense that she took up a cause that the men of Ashanti were seemingly timid to do because they were faced with this governor, Frederick Hodgson or whatever his name is. And they were faced with this governor asking them to give up their soul, if you like. Because if you think of the Asante stool, he was asking them to give this up because it was gold. And they had ordained that as their soul, as something that would keep them together. And again, spirituality was part and parcel of that, calling that stool the soul of the Asante people. And he was asking for that, as well as obviously, I mean, they're running the place, but he's asking them for that. He's already exiled their Asantehene and so on. And she just thought that this was just an effrontery that needed to be challenged. And so she did. She challenged it, and she started a war. Or she led the war. And this was one of the last wars between the Ashantis and the British as well. So yeah, it's a very powerful... It's again, it goes back to... And you can trace it back or through to Winnie, where, you got to get to a point where your people and the fact that they are being oppressed is so important for someone to take a particular stand, or even just someone, a collection of people to take a stand against this and do something about it. And you get to that point where you'll put your life on the line for it, which is what Yaa Asantewa effectively did.
When I think about Yaa Asantewa, and I think about Winnie, and I think about so many other women like Queen of Angola, what's her name, Nzenga, and all these women, I'm just like, we were warrior women fighting wars. When I think about the Dahomey Amazons, they were the guards to the king. I'm just like, okay, we were doing so much before, and sometimes I'm like, kind of like, what happened? So like, when I think about, I'm not gonna lie, like I've been not battling with myself, but thinking about, like, for example, like feminism. So after doing your course and hearing about all these women, and I think about feminism and us trying to get equal rights as men, which is very important. But I feel like back in the day, we were doing more. Look at Yaa Asantewa overthrowing all the men, which I'm here for. It makes me feel like, are we selling ourselves short a little bit when we think about feminism? What do you think?
I think you're right. I think you've hit something there. I think I mentioned it in the course as well, that we were indeed already doing some stuff, as powerful women, we were already warriors. We understood what it meant to be a warrior. We had examples of those. And going back to the sacredness, as we mentioned at the beginning of film, the sacredness of womanhood, for me, that's part and parcel of also being a warrior. Because, a warrior is going to defend their lot. They're going to defend their children, their community, their society, because they are building it. They are builders of their society. Women are builders of societies and communities and people. So it's natural for them to take stance and resist any attack of that sacredness, and that's the society. So now, and that goes even for for men who come in whichever household and try to walk, take over and this kind of stuff. They're defending their household. So when we then now somehow fell into this feminist thing that was like in the whatever year that was, I can't even remember, it was like recent, history. Indeed, we did lose something, because we're now, we lost something and we gained something, because it forced us, if you did it correctly, to understand, well, who are you as a black female? What is the black female experience, and how does it fit into this narrative of feminism, and particularly white Western feminism? It forced us to really understand that our experiences, whilst as women we can share certain experiences, we can say, okay, as women are now oppressed, and women all need to be given fairness and equality. Our experience is completely different, and we're not coming from an experience of subservience. We actually didn't have that experience. We had the experience of strength and power, and knowing a particular complementarity, place of complementarity with our men. We did know that in history. It's just that once patriarchy, ancient patriarchy as well, took over, that then carried, along with capitalism, so because the two aren't really mutually exclusive, so that carried forward into what we then have now. And so it is a matter, like you said, but if we're selling ourselves short, we need to really go back and check to see how that happened, and, as I said as well, reclaiming our sacred power, reclaiming, just as I said, the right to understand if we're angry. Our angry is not irrational. It's not because we're just crazy, so we're angry. Angry is based on a legitimate experience of exploitation and struggle. Our anger is legitimate, and so what we do have to do, obviously, is work on dealing with that anger in ways that make us progressive forces towards the rebuilding of our communities and our societies and ourselves, of course. A lot of us, I suppose, don't really do that work, that work of understanding that you work through the anger, justifiable as it is, rather than allow the anger to be a kind of a crutch. Because that's the other thing we do. Anger can be used as victimhood. It's like, I'm angry, because you've oppressed me. And then I just think, well, where are you going with that? You need to understand that the anger has a basis.